This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 3, Power Broker.
What's going on, Sharon? You don't ever want to come back home?
They'll lock me up if I step foot back in the States. Madripoor doesn't allow extradition.
Look, I'm sorry I didn't call. But after the blip and the chaos, I just...
Look, you know the whole hero thing is a joke, right? I mean, the way you gave up that shield deep down, you must know it's all hypocrisy.
He knows. And not so deep down.
By the way, how is the new Cap?
Don't get me started.
Please, you buy into all that stars and stripes bull. Before you were his pet psychopath, you were Mr. America, Cap's best friend.
Uh-oh. She's kind of awful now.
I hear a lot of people saying the blues, but I'm gonna tell you what the blues is. When you ain't got no money, you got the blues. When you ain't got no money.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders. It is I, Chris, and you're listening to the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries. Yes, we're talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 3, Power Broker, exclusively available on Disney+. I am joined by my illustrious co-hosts.
I totally thought I'd edited that out of our document, Chris. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Defenders. I am one of your other hosts, John.
Yes, Derek is referring to the Disney Plus moment. It is a thing. If he puts it in the script, I read it. It's an ongoing joke now, but actually it's not. It's literally just we forget to edit it out, and as we record, I just say what's in front of me. It's a problem.
We.
Yes, we. Quote, it's the royal we.
Yes.
It is. Using John's vernacular, it is the royal we.
Derek forgets to edit it out. Chris reads it, basically.
Yes. We forget to do things.
Well, welcome back, fellow Defenders, to our discussions about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 3 of 6 here. And I will be spoiling my thoughts a little bit here, probably by saying this is definitely my favourite of the season so far. So many good things happening in this episode. Overall, Chris, what do you think?
Top 2. So it's literally, yeah, of the 3, it is in the top 2. There you go. Yeah.
Wow.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Such high praise, Chris. Such high praise.
Well, this is in my top 3.
Excellent.
Hey!
I'm not going to say where, but it is.
We'll get into it later. I can understand some people's hesitation on this episode and people feeling it has slowed down.
Like yours?
No, exactly. There is this thing where people are like, oh, it's slowed down. For me, it's just no. I completely disagree. I think it's just, I think it is they're building momentum.
As I've said before, you can find any type of opinion on the internet. You can absolutely find anybody who will criticize anything. My favorite criticism that I've seen so far is, I wish the season was longer. I wish the episodes were shorter. And I'm going, do you remember when we did WandaVision? I was like, I wish the episodes were longer and the season was shorter. It's like, they will complain about anything and you'll find somebody to complain about anything. Oh, this is too slow for me. I want the episodes to be a minute and a half long, like a YouTube video. So I know what's happening, but I don't have to watch an episode. I'm sure there's those people out there.
The best one for me is I want more Captain America. No, not that Captain America.
Oh, absolutely.
I want the other Captain America. You mean the one who's dead? Yeah, the other Captain America. I want that one.
He's not dead, Chris.
Whoop.
Steve Rogers is not dead.
No, but he's got a Zimmer frame and a catheter at this stage. I think.
That super soldier serum is keeping him up at all nights.
Exactly. It really means he has to go to the bathroom quite a lot early and at least at night.
I am so glad that scene wasn't included in Endgame.
But I have to say, I want more Zemo and Sharon Carter after this episode. Yeah, loved it. Loved those two in this. And, well, I love the foursome, actually.
Yeah.
I really liked
this
it.
team works really well together. But yes, we're obviously going to spoil everything about the episode as we go into it. So let's kick into it.
Yes. Before we kick into it, just very quickly, don't forget to head on over. If you are joining us for the first time, because some people might, head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com and subscribe on any flying or grounded podcast player or service of your choice. Don't forget, you can also leave us feedback because we thrive on feedback. Yes, we do. It feeds us. Yes, you can leave us a voicemail and we'll put it on the podcast over on tvpodcastindustries.com. You can also email us a voicemail to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or you can do the old analog version of just typing it out to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. We also need to keep the lights on here, so make sure you head on over to patreon.com/tvpodcastindustries, and just for $1, you can ensure that we keep our producer/editor caffeinated throughout the multiple episodes we are doing. Because when I say multiple episodes, yes, we are doing Invincible. Yes, the animated cartoon. It is amazing. It is bloody. It is brilliant. We are doing Pennyworth. Yes, we're on over there with the Alfreds and the alternate DCU neon gaslit fun and games. We're over there. And finally, yes, you're listening to our Marvel podcast, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We'll also be covering all the other Disney Plus, if you will, as Mark Bernardin says, Marvel shows, yes, like Loki, like everything else. We will be covering that here. So please support us just for $1 and you get all those shows.
What's your name for Disney Plus on the Fakest, John?
Disney Edition.
Disney Edition, that's it.
That's nice.
I like
that's
that.
A nice one.
After Chris's joke about me needing coffee for the podcast on our Invincible podcast, I've actually set up a Buy Me a Coffee fundraiser over on buymeacoffee.com/TVPI. So if you literally want to buy me a coffee to keep me up while I'm doing the editing, you can do that now.
Yeah. Excellent stuff. Love it.
But if they don't want to do that and they just want to know what all this whole rigmarole and show is about, do we want to give them the old episode details, Derek?
Absolutely. As with all the episodes so far in the season, Kari Skogland is the director for the show, effectively the showrunner for this season. So far, we've seen with WandaVision, we've seen Matt Shackland as the director of every episode, and this season for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we've seen Kari Skogland being the director for every episode. The writer for this episode is a goodie, and you can definitely tell. Well named too. Derek Kolstad is the writer for this episode. Most well known as the writer for the first 3 John Wick movies. Not on board, I think, for the 4th movie coming out next year. He's not the writer for that. He is writing for Marvel here for Falcon and Winter Soldier. If you have Derek Kolstad, the creator of probably the best violent action movies of the last 10 years in Marvel now, what else do you think they could tap him to do? Do you think he could make a great Punisher movie? I think so.
That definitely explains the bounty element to this episode, as with all the John Wick movies.
Yeah.
And I think we saw a little bit of blood splatter in this episode as well.
I think that was the first blood we've seen in Falcon and Winter Soldier, actually. Yeah, we'll talk about all of that, obviously, as we get into our discussion of the episode. But John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 3, Power Broker?
Sure. Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes make their way to Berlin, where Bucky meets with Baron Helmut Zemo in his cell to get intel on the super soldier serum and the Flag Smashers. Without informing Sam, Bucky sets in train Zemo's escape so that the 3 can work together. Using Zemo's resources, they head to Madripoor, where Bucky must become his previous incarnation, the Winter Soldier, and Sam must play the alternate personality, Conrad Mack, aka Smiling Tiger. They meet with a mid-level perp called Selby, who informs them that a scientist, Dr. Wilfred Nagel, was hired by the Power Broker to continue his work on the serum. As Sam's cover is blown, an unexpected guardian angel in the form of Sharon Carter comes to their aid, killing Selby. This places a bounty on the heads of Zemo, Bucky, and Sam. Sharon joins them as they track down Nagel at the Madripoor docks. After Nagel tells them of his work on the serum with Hydra using the blood of Isaiah Bradley, and then with the CIA after the fall of Hydra, he is now employed by the Power Broker. He also explains that Kari stole the only remaining 20 vials of the serum from the Power Broker and headed to Riga, Latvia, to try and save her teacher and mentor, Mama Donya Madani. With his information given up, Zemo kills Nagel as a group of bounty hunters close in on them. After an intense shootout at the docks, Bucky, Sam and Zemo escape Madripoor and head to Riga to find Kari and the Flag Smashers. However, as they arrive in Latvia, Bucky Barnes makes his excuse to go for a walk around town, but soon finds himself face to face with the Wakandan Dora Milaje, who has come for Zemo.
So cool to tie this in with Black Panther and with Civil War, effectively. It makes so much sense here that the Dora Milaje would arrive, right?
Oh, it's literally just you're kind of going, yeah, the person who killed their previous king has escaped. Mm-hmm. They're going to send someone after him.
Yeah.
Wait, the White Wolf, the quintessential kind of adopted son of Wakanda, is running around potentially with the person who's committed regicide against our country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're going to send your elite to capture him.
Absolutely. Yeah. It just made total sense. It was one of those ones where you go, what will this tie into when we do a TV show on the MCU on Disney Plus? What movies will it tie into? And for some reason we didn't think Black Panther, but it makes total sense because it is completely tied into their story. Let's get into our bullet points for the episode. Bullet point number 1, the Baron Zemo breakout. Obviously last week the episode ended with our boys, Falcon the Winter Soldier, off to visit Baron Helmut Zemo in prison. What did you think of this way of doing it? This kind of setup where you see them arriving at prison. Bucky goes off to talk to Zemo. We have that little interaction between the two of them where Zemo kind of jokingly calls out the trigger words to turn Bucky back into the Winter Soldier. I thought that scene was really good. And then the kind of flip of it when we see Winter Soldier explaining hypothetically how he could possibly break Baron Zemo out of prison. What do you think of that kind of way of doing it?
I enjoyed the hell out of the hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that was just because I was just like, oh wait, they're gonna do that's how hypothetically would do it, and then actually, like, they have to go do something else. Like, it's gonna go, we have to do a smash and grab.
Like the Ocean's 11 one where they tell you the plan and then they do the plan slightly differently kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's so much better than Ocean's 11.
Oh, you're not a fan of it?
No, I'm not. But it's just, I love this. I love the mechanism of doing it like that. And I think just seeing Sam, like, as it clicks that this isn't really a hypothetical. Yeah. It's just really nice play.
Yeah. Because we're watching it together, myself and John was going, how did he get the Machiavelli book? I didn't see Bucky hand that book over to him. And it's like, oh no, that may not be exactly what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it is exactly what happened and he's planned this weeks in advance to break Helmut Zemo out. This is how he would do it, So I really like the idea that it throws a little bit of a question over exactly how he got out, but this is the kind of way it could have worked. Kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. I really liked as well, Zemo trying the trigger words as Bucky comes to the cell. I mean, that was just so nice. And again, I think all through this episode, just the little play of Zemo with Bucky Barnes all the way through this, I really, really enjoyed. Uh-huh. And riling up Sam, like, I know we're going to come to Madripoor later in our next bullet point, but just that moment where, because Bucky has to go as the Winter Soldier to be in character, to sell that to the den of iniquity that is Madripoor. I love the fact that, he turns to Sam and says it didn't take him long to get back into the groove effectively as he fights in the bar. So, and all of this through, sort of underlying Zemo's sort of insertion into this couple of Bucky and Sam Wilson. I really, really enjoyed a lot. Because I think Zemo is just one of the great characters that came from the MCU, because I think his motivations, we had, aliens, androids, and wizards in the last one, and I think there is an element of that in the MCU, and Zemo is this really realistic, grounded rationale for what he does, which is to stop super soldiers.
Absolutely.
And, he has some great moments in this. I particularly like where he's talking about Steve Rogers about the danger of people like him, that they're put on pedestals, they're made into icons, but with doing that, you forget all their flaws that they have. Do we really want, these kind of people, I think he brings it back to the Red Skull and says, do we want a world full of Red Skulls?
Yeah.
And I just think, it's so grounded in terms of his his rationale for what he does. And I love that about him.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I love the idea that this team up is so logical. I know we'll talk about it later on. There is a point where Zemo gets away from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and you feel like maybe he's just going to go off on the run and break away now. But you can totally understand why he doesn't. The motivation of him joining with these guys is, hang on a second, there's 8 other superpowered individuals in the world who could form a team like the one he killed in Civil War. And potentially there's another 12 more people that could be created as super soldiers. So his motivation here is, you want to stop these superpowered individuals. I always want to stop superpowered individuals. So of course I'm going to work with you guys. It makes total sense that their motivations align, I suppose, in this way. And that's the most important thing if you're going to bring the bad guy from one of your biggest Marvel movies, and turn him into an ally for your major characters here. I think that works really well as the sequel. We did talk about, the tropes of long form action movies, things like Fast and the Furious, where everybody who was a villain in the first 4 or 5 of those movies by the end is the heroes of those movies. Well, you have to have good motivation for that to happen. I think they nailed it here with this version of Zemo joining Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah. And I think the other aspect to the Baron Zemo breakout is, the whole reason why you've got Sam and Bucky going to Zemo for that Hydra sort of, the history of Hydra that Baron Zemo has, and the whole history that he holds in his brain around the super soldier program and the serum. And we also have, new Cap America here and Lamar both also going to find Zemo as well, and realizing he is the way into this puzzle that they have to decipher. It's just they're, a couple of weeks behind Bucky and Sam in that sense.
Yeah, well, a couple of days probably. Maybe
oh,
weeks.
No, exactly. No, but if Bucky was planning the escape of Zemo in advance, I mean, I'm just like, and maybe that they're only really there because of the breakout of Zemo. I mean, that obviously that alarm must have been raised as well, but that they realize that it's probably Sam and Bucky.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, they're going to visit Zemo. They definitely say it in dialogue. They're going to visit him because they're going to follow the same plan as Bucky had kind of laid out.
Yeah.
But when they get there, they realize that Zemo's gone, and we find out it was the same day. The visit from Falcon the Winter Soldier and the breakout of Zemo was the same day.
Yeah, exactly. Close but no cigar in that sense for them. And the other thing, just quickly, is that, you get another sense of John Walker here, where he effectively says that who cares about the means as long as you get to the end. So that's another interesting little thing on John Walker as Captain America, is that maybe any means possible justifies the ends for him. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting.
It's not just interesting, it's a complete change from what we saw in the conversation with Bucky and Falcon Bucky and Sam last episode. They specifically said, we can do things that you can't do because you're Captain America. You have to abide by the rules. And this episode here, he's saying, I'm no longer going to abide by the rules, effectively. So yeah, you're right. It's very, very different.
Yeah. Okay. So in John Walker, they're slowly setting him up, and we'll discuss it probably more when we discuss the Flag Smashers. But there's a scene there where they are literally each episode giving you tidbits now to show you the real John Walker outside of the publicly Good Morning America kind of PR run of John Walker. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The hothead, the I will get things done no matter what. Anyway. So we're starting to see that. On Zemo, I enjoyed every aspect of Zemo being back on this. This was, for me, was fantastic. Mm-hmm. I do love they were just like, yeah, you're royalty. Like, I'm actually a baron. And just the shambling old butler.
Hilarious. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I locked him in a closet in the fridge back in Tomb Raider 2 on the PlayStation. There's just like
Deep cuts, Chris.
Yeah.
I love that conversation that is done in German with the butler, where he's saying, do the smell test in the food. If it doesn't pass the smell test, feed it to those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great moment with Helmut, and especially because the butler kind of responds with him going, I'm so happy you're back. It's like, he really gets the humor of
it. It is really good. And I think the other thing, just I guess on Zemo, here. I like that they just recount his motivation about what happens in Sokovia. And this is touched on through the episode as well. And I like that because I think from Civil War, that was such a strong motivation of Zemo. And it's still there, you know, that his country effectively had part of the planet dropped on them, from the attack in Sokovia on the Hydra base and with Ultron. So I really liked, them touching on that. I mean, even to the point where he says, you know, did you ever visit the memorial to, the people who died in that incident in Sokovia?
Because you mentioned Sokovia has been completely subsumed by all the countries around it. Sokovia no longer exists effectively and has been taken apart. All the money, all the wealth and riches that was left have all been taken.
So that, I just thought that was really good that they did that.
Yeah. On the country being divided and ripped apart, did you hear one of our allies to the east? I think they're setting up Latveria.
Yeah.
They're just this country beside Sokovia. For our listeners who are not sure or who do not know what Latveria is the home country of Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
And it's similar to Sokovia. It's a made up country, but they're just kind of, they're I think the way they get around kind of saying, well, Latveria was nothing and now it's a big thing is they can build it up and say, well, it was this tiny monarch beside Sokovia and ruled by this guy, and all of a sudden it was when Sokovia was destroyed, they just took over all of the refugees from Latveria, and now the Sokovians love the Latverian king, a monarch, Dr. Doom, Victor Von Doom, or the Von Dooms. And that's how you could build up, because we just found out Sokovia had a royalty as well, a barony, and like Zemo is there. And then you're just again setting, like, all these little things are just setting up. It's this is where I can feel Kevin Feige's hand. Right. But the reason we don't have a TV showrunner in the respect of a showrunner in kind of the way you would on other shows is because that you have a director and you have the writer on these Marvel shows, and then you have, technically it's been the head producer of these shows is Kevin Feige. We found this out through the WandaVision kind of behind the scenes piece they did where they said Kevin Feige was deeply involved in WandaVision. This is where I can see him being deeply involved, quote unquote, where he's like, I want you to just name drop this piece. And like, that's going to pay off potentially.
I think they look for opportunities within the story written by the head writers, the central story. They look for opportunities to tie it into the universe. They actually, what we found out from WandaVision effectively is that they have a team of people that when the writer's room come up with their concept for the story, they look at the comic book series and see what they can tie in with. Even if the head writer is a big comic book fan, there's a whole team at Marvel that go, what else could we add into this that could tie in with past books, past comics.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I must say, I can really feel Feige's fondle here as well, or dare I say his finessing, because from his talk about that and the allies to the east, as you say, I just thought, oh my goodness, this has that Doctor Doom link, the Latveria link, and the possibility that in some way maybe Zemo and Doom have that connection because of the royalty element. And I think that, to me, that would just be like a little cherry on top. Now this is a long-term theory, and I guess it will never pan out. But look, why not?
We know that the Fantastic Four are coming.
Yeah, this makes a lot more logical sense than your theory that he was coming into WandaVision. So I'll give you that.
I do not think he'll be here. I think they were going to get the name drop for Latveria at some point from Zemo.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that's exactly what I meant. So that is the theory. I don't see Doctor Doom coming into the show. I just think he was never coming into WandaVision. But I think the idea that they may drop Latveria as a country into this show is logical. One thing I do want to call out here, because it's going to play into my own defend at the end of the episode. There's a couple of conversations that are really clunky between Zemo and Sam and Bucky, probably because I've seen Civil War and Winter Soldier more often than any of the Marvel movies. They're the ones I go back to over and over again. Some of the conversations that are in here really feel like, how would Sam only remember that one conversation with that one line in the movie that we all saw as an audience to be able to repeat back, oh, you've got that notebook that Steve had when he came back, and I told him that he should listen to that particular album. What did you think of the album, Bucky? And you're kind of going, they knew each other for 4 years. Would you remember what exact conversation you had? It feels really like the writer trying to squeeze something from a movie into the TV show that people remember. Even the moment when Sam's sitting in the back of the car and he says to Bucky, you're not going to move your seat up. Like, it's a callback joke that just doesn't work for me. It doesn't feel right in the episode. But overall, the interactions between these characters are really good.
Right. First off, I barely remember what I say to my wife 2 days ago.
I'm
not going to lie.
Yeah. You barely remember what you say to Chris's wife 2 days ago.
You're my wife now. That's true.
This is something I found, and this is, again, when I said my top 2 earlier, this plays into my defense. This was too clunky for me. While Zemo is they played Zemo as a fantastic character in Civil War, in my opinion, there's something off. It was just something strange about his dialogue. They were building him to be this kind of Hannibal Lecter, super intelligent, evil genius. It feels slightly off. They're like, remember this guy? Well, actually, he's super rich. Oh, and do you know what? He's also this other, like, he knew all the bad guys in Madripoor. Like, just, they're, like, it's...
See, all of that stuff I think makes logical sense. It's just, my complaint really is just having to use particular dialogue from the 2 movies and putting it back in as new dialogue here. And I understand that the whole premise of the Marvel TV shows is that they're trying to sell it to people who may not have seen the movies or maybe have only seen them once and that kind of stuff. But I just feel, while the conversations are okay, it just feels like, hang on a second, why are you saying the same thing that you said 9 years ago and remembering that conversation? It just feels like you probably wouldn't have that in the real world. Whereas developing Baron Zemo's character and explaining the other stuff that people won't know about him, because why would Sam and Bucky know his full history that he is a Baron? I understand adding that in and the idea that he has this trail to the super soldier serum. Of course he would, because he was investigating it for so many years. That's how he got involved in Civil War. So I understand expanding that and why he is that villain.
So my only bit was, yes, I agree. The logical writing narrative made sense. Mm-hmm. The unfortunately written narrative beats did not. It just felt clunky. Like, it basically, I'm agreeing exactly with you. It's just, I felt it was also just expanded in that, for example, the meeting with Selby in Madripoor, which we're going to talk about now, just felt robotic to a degree sometimes.
Well, okay.
There we go. That's it.
We will agree to disagree on that and move on to our discussion about Madripoor. Yes, Madripoor, a big comic book city, I suppose, or a town. We see it quite often in the comic books, particularly in the X-Men. It's a place where Logan goes to kind of hide out, and Logan being Wolverine in the comic books, he goes to hide out. He has his own identity that he lives under when he's in Madripoor, called Patch, which is his little identity. And I loved our opening to Madripoor when we arrived there. One of the first moments that we see the bar, the Princess Bar, which is where Wolvie would be hanging out when he's in Madripoor. So I like the idea that you see Sam specifically look at the sign, and they've established that place is there, because if Wolverine does exist, if we are going to get Wolverine in the MCU, he's alive right now, because the character is about 150 years old at this stage. So he may be sitting at the bar in there having a couple of shots, waiting to start another bar brawl. I kind of like that establishing element for Marvel Comics fans.
The way it panned to the Princess Bar was just like, this is an Easter egg! Mm-hmm. Shout, neon sign, neon signs.
Like it was even, as you say, it's this is not an Easter egg. This place exists in our world. It's not.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it was really cool. Yeah. And I think Madripoor, just in its entirety, was so well realized.
Yeah.
I loved it. It felt like that seedy den of iniquity. It was really, really good. And I just like how it it also fitted with Zemo and then with Sharon. It felt like they were connected to this city, in all its dreadful glory. And I really, really enjoyed it. And this is where you really got the sense of the hand of Derek Kolstad, for me, and just how he realizes the John Wick movies, and here in Madripoor. It was so good.
It seemed like the mix of all of the worst parts of the big cities of the world. It feels like it's all combined together, which is what Madripoor always feels like in the comics. It's like, if you want to go to the worst place in the world, think New York in the 70s, think Shanghai in its worst times, think Bangkok in its worst times, combine them all together. And that's Madripoor, so I really like how it's all been put together here.
It just straight out of the comic book to me. It just literally rang so clear. You had High Town, you had Low Town. It looks like Singapore on steroids, which was the way it was always supposed to. You kind of had the shanty and then the high rise. Yeah. It just felt straight out of a comic book for me. And it was beautiful to see. And the fact it was so well realized is, for me, one of the reasons I am just in awe of what they are doing under these Disney Plus shows. Mm-hmm. It's essentially, can you imagine, more than likely, if we got this in a film, it would have been, a 4-minute set visit to Madripoor in a film, and then they're gone because that was it. We got a good, 30-minute plus in Madripoor and saw all elements of it, explanation of it, and that's why I'm just so happy that they are doing these larger than life shows.
Exactly. Yeah, it feels like a real established place. It's an island I certainly don't want to be visiting at any point. So
I would love to visit Madripoor, I have to say, and I think just like the Brass Monkey Bar. I loved it. I loved the villainy and scum. It was almost like the cantina. I think,
I'm sure there was some guidance from the Star Wars universe on how you build that, right?
Well, I have to say, I thought I saw George Lucas in this, episode when you go to Sharon Carter's host party, where you see Zemo doing his little jig. And there's a moment where there's a cut-off where there's two people talking, and it looks the spit of George Lucas. I was like, has he got a cameo here? But coming back to the Monkey Bar, I loved the fact that Zemo is Zemo in this, but asking Bucky to reprise his his appearance and the way he acts as the Winter Soldier was really good. And I loved the comedy element of having Sam Wilson playing this Conrad Mack, aka Smiling Tiger. And Anthony Mackie at the bar getting the shot with the bit of snake flesh is like that. He does that whole uncomfortable stuff really well. I really enjoyed what he did there. Yeah. And it was just so well done.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? Because Anthony Mackie obviously has done a lot of action movies, but I do think he's got a real comedy streak in him that we've seen in behind the scenes stuff and interviews, and so I'm really hoping that he gets a good comedy role in the future, because he really can play it. That scene is really, really good. I think Smiling Tiger. What do you think, Chris? Is Smiling Tiger a reference to the head of Madripoor, Tiger from the comics, or is there another character called Smiling Tiger?
No, the character Smiling Tiger. He was a character from the New Mutants. He was evil. He's a villain. Mm-hmm. Smiling Tiger. He's started, I think, in Chris Claremont's New Mutants, right, and then went on to be in Zemo's Thunderbolts.
Excellent.
So that's the Baron Zemo tie, and he's just your run of the mill. Kind of, not even B-list, D-list kind of villain that they like to kind of just throw in when they need a cat-like, feral, kind of bristly character. They show him in.
So he has like superpowers. He has some form.
Yes, He's just, if I remember correctly, he's essentially just enhanced agility, claws. that type of thing.
Okay.
Like, I do love the conversation between Zemo and Sam when Zemo's saying, "Gotta dress up like this guy," and Sam's in his outfit going, "You made me dress like a pimp." And Zemo, as you can tell, Zemo's got a little bit of style about him. He's kind of going, only an American dressed as good as that would think he looks like a pimp.
Yeah, exactly.
Zemo clearly likes that
fashion
style.
forward, I think he says. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that was really good. And I think, Anthony Mackie is awesome. And you have again that kind of awesomeness of Anthony Mackie as an actor, when they meet Selby, where his phone goes and it's his sister, on the phone. And you just have that awkwardness where he's like, he's talking about, we've got to do the heist on the bank, the laundering of all that money. And then you get the call out to the kids on speakerphone to, where have you put the cereal kind of thing. I thought that was really nice, but obviously that sort of kicks everything off.
Well, yeah, it ends in her calling him Sam. So that's actually what breaks everything. I love that. Selby was going to accept the whole conversation, really. She was kind of going to accept the whole thing until Sam was called out. Even the serial conversation, she's kind of thinking, well, maybe this could be somebody that's just dealing with their kids. Maybe this could still be a villain, effectively. But it's only when Sam is called out. Really good moment to kick off the kind of fight that's in there. But that battle in the bar, when we finally get a new version of the Winter Soldier theme, it's not the old version. It's not the really intense Winter Soldier theme that Bucky has had before, but when he's pretending or trying to replicate his old Winter Soldier style, we get a new Winter Soldier theme for Bucky. I thought that was so cool. It feels really remixed and feels really dynamic in comparison to the single-minded killer theme that was the old Winter Soldier theme. I thought it was a really good musical touch in there.
Yeah. That fight alone, just you also saw there's a slight difference. He didn't kill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's I think the difference in the theme of the Winter Soldier theme.
Yeah.
It's like he's gone from being a killer to he's similar to what we've discussed around Steve Rogers. Yes, Steve Rogers used a gun, but then he started to use the shield only exclusively because he didn't kill per se. He just harmed, like severely, potentially sometimes mortally wounding.
Yeah.
But he just harmed. So that was the interesting piece there.
But it's so cool. I love that everybody in the whole town knows exactly who the Winter Soldier is, and it's kind of the only difference between the Winter Soldier they've seen in the past and this guy is he's had a haircut, That's the instant thing they've said about it,
But it's interesting you say that, Chris, because I think that really forms into Zemo's character as well. You say that Steve Rogers didn't kill, and yet for Zemo, his thought is that your actions killed so many people in Sokovia. Yep. And that's the thing. It comes back to the danger of putting Steve Rogers on a pedestal and saying that he doesn't kill, because he does, and he's killed plenty of innocents. Sorry, I'm sounding like a Zemo advocate here, but it's just like, that's what I love about how Zemo's character comes in, is because, it's the Star-Spangled Banner man who's pure and principled, when in fact his actions, even though he may be guided in that way, has led to a lot of people dying. He may not have, shot someone or stabbed someone or whatever. And I also would say a shield of vibranium flying at you is most likely to kill you if you're a normal human being.
Not directly, just severe concussion.
Yeah.
Or just the skull's exploding as it hits you in the head.
Just knocks you out. I would say Steve is not the only one responsible. He himself and Tony Stark were being targeted, but because Tony Stark, again, warmongering arms dealer, who led the Avengers,
exactly.
And he also created Ultron, the thing that killed Sokovia, effectively. So it is on Tony more than Steve.
No, it's on all of them, and that's the whole motivation of Zemo, why he doesn't like super soldiers, why he doesn't like the Avengers. It's because it's actually on all of them. It's the combined element here.
Yeah.
And I think that's really kind of the neat thing about Zemo. But
more Tony than Steve.
Maybe.
Anyway, you did mention killing earlier on, Chris, the fact that Steve doesn't kill and Soda doesn't kill. This was the scene we're talking about, the death of Selby here, the kind of intermediary between Zemo and potentially this power broker character. She gets shot straight through the chest, and we see blood actually coming out. And I think, as I said earlier on, I think that's the first blood we've seen in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, despite people falling out of the sky, people being knocked out, people being shot at. We, even when someone's shot, we haven't actually seen blood. We've seen them fall off screen. This time you actually see blood coming out of her as she falls to the ground, which seems like something you don't normally see on Disney Plus shows, as well. So that's different for the show.
This was their big one.
Yeah.
Well, like, even the guy who died in a hail of bullets didn't explode in a hail of bullets. It was a bit like, okay. You're right. It is that. Before we move on to the Selby being killed and who we think it was, I have one problem with this, which is this is all on Sam, because what superhero keeps their phone on?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, literally, that took me out of the moment, because I'm like, come on, like, I'm in a meeting, I put my phone on silent. Everyone puts their phone on silent, or at least on vibrate.
Yeah.
But just that, like, who has it on super loud mode?
Yeah. Even if you had it on vibrate and you just heard the zzz,
that would have been better.
Would have felt more real, because he's tried to do something, but he should have actually just put it on mute, and on silent. And it's like, oh, okay, grand. Yeah. I think, I know what you mean, but I like the comedy element of it that it induced, which was pretty good.
That's it.
I think just before moving on to bullet point 3 as well, the other interesting thing we get here is just that, the power broker in Madripoor is judge, jury, and executioner.
Judy and executioner.
Judge, Judy, and executioner.
Yeah.
I called him the pacemaker, I think, when we were sat watching it. I was like, oh, it's the pacemaker. Oh no, it's the power broker.
Very much so.
But, I think, it's kind of interesting. Whilst we don't see the power broker, Selby is linked in his organization, and we get to hear more of his involvement with Nagel here, as they learn more about, the serum and the flag smashers and everything connected with them. So that was another nice little element from, this visit to the Brass Monkey Bar and the conversation with Selby as well.
Yeah, comic book version, there would always be some form of kind of leader of Madripoor, someone that is overarching all the criminals there. They have to kind of pay respect to the leader of Madripoor. And that seems to be the power broker here. I love, again, that sign that's on the wall, a bit of graffiti as they walk in that just says the power broker is watching. So everybody knows who they're paying their dues to effectively, for being in Madripoor. So really interesting. Selby's death then just kicks off the bounty hunter moment, as John mentioned, the kind of John Wick moment. Everybody in town gets a message to their phone going, someone's killed her, $1 million to take them out effectively. So everybody leaves, and we now get our introduction to our bullet point 3. Here comes Sharon Carter. Oh, finally getting Sharon Carter back in this TV show. I love this character in the comic books. Absolutely love her. She had a couple of good moments in Winter Soldier and in Civil War. It was good to see her at least brought to life, but this is the character I wanted to see, from her introduction, seeing her in the show here. I think it's really cool seeing this change to the character. The fact that she does save Bucky and Sam, and gets them out of there and brings them to her awesome apartment up in Hightown. It's just so good to see her just being given so much more in the show.
Oh, definitely. Like, I loved Sharon Carter here. I think with Zemo, just so well portrayed here. And I just really liked everything about her rationale, that the idea that, she's effectively joined the life of a real-time hustler, because she's had to be a hustler when she was on the run for helping Captain America, and she's still on the run. She's not had this pardon in any way. And I love that, this idea that she has become adaptable, pragmatic, and in order to survive. And again, with Sam coming in and saying, I'll get you pardoned, I'll promise that if you help us, we'll do that. Yeah. And she's like, I don't, all that Star Spangled Banner stuff has left me, I need more than promises. I want to have a deal. She's kind of saying, can you, Sam, Wilson, deliver me a pardon. She said, there's a doubt there. She's being cautious. She's being, in order to survive so that she doesn't get her hopes up and then gets arrested. She's trying to survive. And I just thought that was really, really cool. I really like that about how they framed her in this episode.
I'm in agreement. Sharon Carter here is that I'm getting a lot of Black Widow vibes. In that it's a badass espionage spy.
So basically, the Sharon Carter that's here really feels like comic book Sharon Carter, particularly the most recent run from Ta-Nehisi Coates of Captain America. Sharon Carter is a very central character in those books, and she is unwilling to go against what she wants to get done. Even when Steve's involved, she'll send him on a path to accomplish her goals more than follow. So the Sharon that we were introduced to in Civil War and introduced to in Winter Soldier and was in Civil War was very much just a member of SHIELD and followed along with what Steve wanted, went along with him in the Civil War, effectively, and the breakup of SHIELD went and followed him. Now we have Sharon Carter living on her own, completely making her own decisions, and needs to achieve her goal, which is getting back to her family, which I just think it seems very similar to comic book Sharon Carter. She's been such an important character in the comics for years that she needs her own character in the movies, and I feel like just in this episode, they've accomplished that. I think there's a moment in the episode where Sharon kind of sends Bucky and Sam and Zemo off in their car and walks away, and John turned around and went, "Oh, that's not all we see of her," because that was great. Like, that was a great introduction. So, so having that for just a couple of minutes in this episode, or this half of the episode really, at least seeing her in here was so good. I think they've realized her really well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I just think it's, I loved the one bit I'll call out on my opinion on this was the selling of, she sells real art, to people, and it's that, no, most of the stuff that's in the Louvre and the museums is fake. Yeah. I was like, no. Like, is that, and it is true. A lot of the stuff that's hanging up is not the original. The original hangs in something else, and a copy has been given to help with art fraud and theft and stuff like that. Apparently, yeah. Apparently, and I was like, no, oh my god, that's such a, and it's a throwaway line. This is one of the reasons I love the writing here. But it's just a throwaway line that you're like, oh my god, that's so cool. Yeah.
And I guess in Madripoor, it's been stolen and they've replaced it with a fake.
Yes.
I mean, and again, it's another nice dimension to Sharon Carter here that to survive, she would never have done this in the MCU movies.
Well, they wouldn't have had the time.
No, exactly.
Or they wouldn't have taken the time to develop Sharon Carter in the movies. It was all about the big heroes. She's not super powered, she's not, someone that they would spend time on in the movies. And she says that here. She says effectively, she got the blame just like Sam did, but because he's an Avenger, hey, he's fine. He's working again. Even Winter Soldier, he's gotten off on all of the charges. And she's just sitting here on her own in Madripoor, having to make her own life out of it, not even able to talk to her father and tell her where she is. So she's saying I got the worst deal because I was an agent of an organization that fell apart and was not a superhero like everybody else, that I didn't get that protection. So I really like that, that element of her characters really added in there.
Completely agree. So that takes us to, she finds at the party, which looks like an amazing party.
I feel like there was supposed to be more of that party.
Yes.
Because we have Sam the following morning kind of comments, this would give New York a run for its money. And you get the feeling that means that everybody there is hungover, that himself, Zemo and Bucky have all had a lot to drink at that party. You just get a little flash of it with that dance scene from Helmut Zemo when he's, doing the awful dad dance in the middle of this awesome looking nightclub, effectively.
It was amazing.
But you just get this idea that there was supposed to be more of, them all partying, that maybe they filmed for a couple of hours those scenes. But yeah, anyway, yes, off to the port.
We get off to the port where we are introduced to Nagel, and we get the history of the actual new super soldier serum being created, the remnants of Project Rebirth being brought to life, and cracked by Nagel. This is interesting. We literally get an exposition dump from a character who just explains everything. In retrospect, we can quickly see that, okay, so Nagel worked on Isaiah Bradley's samples.
Yeah.
Was able to reverse engineer the super soldier serum to make it, and this is interesting, to make it more lean and targeted.
Yeah.
So that, you're not getting the Steve Rogers buff super soldiers. They can look like anyone.
Like, of all the things to remove from the super soldier serum, taking out the body that you would get from getting the injections of that serum, I think that was a bad choice for Nagel, showing he's evil.
Oh, 100%. Like, if I'm going to take a super soldier serum and like have that 50-50, I want the Marvel abs that comes with it. Like, that is
exactly.
just, it's like
my beer gut. What needs to go?
Yeah, you'll still look normal. You'll just be super super powered.
Exactly. No. Oh, my bingo wings. Oh no.
No. But okay, so this is what I did enjoy. The explanation of why and how this came about. So he just cracked it. He was about to produce it for the CIA. Mm-hmm. The blip happens.
Yep.
He comes back. They moved on. They closed the project. So he goes to the power broker and does it there.
Exactly.
He sells it to the highest bidder. And you're like, interesting.
Yeah, the blip is an interesting loophole, effectively for the MCU here. You can imagine that the CIA would keep all this under control, but if half the world has just blipped back, maybe they can't just follow up on all those leads that have suddenly popped back up again. I really like that. But again, we have Zemo killing him because he wants to make sure this doesn't happen again. So he's the only person now living that has the concept and the ideas to make a super soldier serum. So Zemo's acting on exactly the motivation that he has. So he's killing him right there.
No, I love that. I love that he shot him. It makes absolute sense. And, I liked, like you, Chris, this whole sort of the rationale and the background that Nagel introduces here, even just that kind of, neat slip from working for Hydra to working for the CIA. It feels very Cold War type of thing where or like Project Paperclip with former Nazi scientists coming over. And that, we'll forget about our principles because this is going to deliver innovation technology, however awful it's being derived from.
And already referenced in the Marvel Universe with the Hydra.
Exactly. So this was really, really, excellent. Mm-hmm. And also just with the whole, relationship to Isaiah Bradley and the blood samples, and seeing Sam's reaction, on the plane after them going from Madripoor to Riga, was just that was also a nice little touch, keeping the Isaiah Bradley, element here in this.
And key to it is the fact that Isaiah's name was never mentioned by the Doctor here. Nope. He mentions he got a sample from some person who had the super soldier serum effectively. Whereas if it was Steve Rogers' names would absolutely have been said. Yes, it would have been, exactly. I got a sample of Captain America's blood. So that's where the anger comes from Sam in this discussion, that this person has been lost to memory effectively because nobody cared about him. He was left on his own and treated like a test subject. So really, really good scene. So
the fun thing is, the blue vials that were in that shipping container that could have been the proto-regenesis of growth of some more of the super soldier serum were completely destroyed by the rocket powered grenade. So there's nothing left there. Yeah. So essentially what we're saying is there were 20 some serums. I think 20 vials, he says 20. So depending on, we know there's at least 6 or 7 flag smashers.
There's 8. Yep.
There's 8. There's 8 flag smashers. So there was 12 vials left, potentially, that the flag smashers have.
Kari has, yeah.
Kari. So what this gives us the option of more people getting the super soldier serum. So essentially, we can see maybe John Walker and Battlestar taking it. Maybe Sam Wilson taking it. Like, we see these there's 12 vials left. So that is now where we are moved to, versus where we were, where it's like, okay, we need to figure out where all this is coming from, where the super soldier coming. Now it's like, there's 12 files left. We need to figure this out.
Yeah.
Like, that is the interesting part.
Absolutely. I love putting a finite number on it is just really important, because, you've always had this idea that Cap was unique. He was created in the 40s. There was only one vial, that was used on him. And then Erskine was killed, who created him. And then the Hydra were supposed to have stolen some of the vials. And that's where it continued on with other people, that's always supposed to be a very small amount of these in the world. So now again, we have very small amount in the world, 8 people created with the serum, and there's another 12 possibility out there. Yeah, I think that's really cool.
We are getting closer to the Weapon X program, by the way. This is what some form of the Weapon X program is coming into this.
Maybe, yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Moving on, we get a great brawl in the shipping area. While all this exposition is being dumped, Sharon Carter is laying out these mercenaries.
She's so cool here. Yeah. Absolutely
definitely.
love these suits. Yeah. Like if you want someone at your back who's going to be the lookout, you can traditionally that role is someone that literally watches on and calls out to them. There's some danger coming your way. But if you want somebody to do your lookout for you, get Sharon Carter. She's literally going to actively kill and fight with the people that will be coming to attack you. I thought it was really, really good scenes, really dynamic, and showing you her power. Like, she went up against the Winter Soldier when he was at his full power, back in the Winter Soldier, so she certainly has the skills as a former SHIELD agent, that are well trained, hand to hand combatant. So, good to see them in full use in the show.
100%. And we get Zemo re-showing his military background. In full costume.
Yeah, the mask was awesome.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. I'd like a little explanation for the mask. I'd like if it was something like he'd said, I wear it because it has a bulletproof plate in it or something, It's
going to be something like that, yeah.
Or I guess that because he's a Baron, he's connected in with the former royalty of Sokovia. It's simply he has to hide his identity, maybe. I guess, maybe. But then he's known as Zemo, which is his family name, so possibly not, I guess. I just when I think that through.
Yeah. It looks cool. A really great version of the comic book costume turned into this live action version, but I just would like one line. That's all.
Yeah.
And I think here as well, at the end, once they've survived this this attack by all the bounty hunters that have been sent upon them, that you just have a nice little sort of final piece with Sharon Carter with another lady saying we have a problem. In fact, we have 2 problems. So again, shifting sands around Sharon Carter. Is she with the power broker? Is she with another organization? Given the ending here, is it something to do with Wakanda? What's the situation here? Or is she with the Flag Smashers? You just really don't know at this stage. Yeah. But again, just a nice little bit of intrigue thrown in there right at the end.
And I do have that question as to whether she is the power broker as well. I think, Chris, you have the same kind of idea that maybe she is the power broker. We still haven't had that person introduced. It's the name of the episode. They're referred over and over again to the power broker. So could that be Sharon Carter? Is that the role she's assumed in Madripoor?
Yeah, I think that would be a great twist.
It's possible.
In my opinion, which is essentially she became the power broker. She is so disillusioned with all the Star Spangled Banner stuff and the heroes and the US. She's like, no, I'm gonna be me. She has been belittled by the superhero community to the point she can no longer return to her family. So it's that hero, good guy, or good person becomes bad guy because they're in it for themselves now. That she's basically and the reason she was helping the guys is she was like, she brought them to Nagel to try and find out so that she could help. She could set them loose to try and find her super soldier serum.
Maybe, yeah.
With the Flag Smashers.
Yeah.
And it was by pure issue. The problem is that Nagel's dead. The other problem is that she's no longer with the Winter Soldier and Sam anymore. Like, she goes, we have a problem. We have 2 of them. The problem is, A, Nagel's dead, B, whatever. Like, I just think it adds up as you kind of put it together.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the idea that she could be the power broker, but whether it adds up, because if she's the power broker, why would she allow the bounty to, we've just heard the power broker is judge, jury, and executioner.
Yeah.
She's just killed, or one of the bounty hunters is just blown up. I mean, even if Nagel hadn't been shot by Zemo, he could have been blown up in that rocket attack. And, also killed Selby. It feels like everything she's done has undermined what the power broker would have, unless there is, this really lovely, intricate sort of double flip that happens around what the power broker wants to do and who that is. And so it could link in there, absolutely. But if we think that the power broker is potentially the bad guy or gal behind, all of this, then potentially she's just undermined everything that she was going for. Yeah. So that's the only thing that maybe just holds me back a bit. But having said that, with the Flag Smashers, you get that really nice moment with Lamar talking about, they're trying to feed people, they're trying to give people medicine, and that brings about loyalty. And possibly there's that ulterior element around the power broker and so on. And I don't know. I don't know quite yet. I'm not totally there because of the events in this episode, but it would still be very cool.
I kind of like the idea of bringing Zemo back. He works with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and actually the person they're working against, the power broker, potentially is a former character we knew as Sharon Carter. I like that idea. Someone that was hung out to dry by the superhero community and has turned against them. I don't think that's actually going to happen, because this is Sharon Carter, massive character from the comic books. What I do think is possible, and it leads us directly into bullet point 4, is potentially she is on the side of the Flag Smashers as well. This is the other option for her, I think, one of the other big options. Carly seems to know very quickly that the Doctor is dead. It cuts straight to that conversation directly after Sharon talking to the person that you mentioned, John, where she's saying we have a problem. It cuts directly to that conversation between Carly and a member of the Flag Smashers, where she's saying the Doctor's dead. We have the 20 vials and there will be no more produced effectively. So that feels like a quick phone call from Sharon Carter to say this is what just happened. That's now where we're going, I suppose. That's what it feels like. But there is a connection as well between Carly and the Doctor. She tried to get the Doctor to save her mentor, her former teacher. I think she calls her Mama Danya. So the person that has died in Riga effectively in her arms. So someone very close to her. This is what pushes Carly over the edge, and into much more of a terrorist act than she had been doing in the past. This idea that they were, as a group, they were getting food and getting medicines for the people that are in these camps that were created after the blip. That was what they were doing as the Flag Smashers, was getting stuff to keep these people alive. They're fighting for their lives, but now she's turned to much more terrorist acts, planting a car bomb outside the GRC's building, killing the soldiers inside. That's a terrorist act that she's doing, and it seems to be totally against the beliefs of the other Flag Smashers. The person that's with her the whole time is completely shocked at the idea that she would do this.
Yeah.
So,
and it's interesting that, it's all in the Global Repatriation Council, and you have that kind of wonderful advert at the start, the PR, and then you have the reality of the GRC. Absolutely. With these kind of, they're hoarding supplies, the camps are crowded, people are catching diseases in them, such as with Mama Donya. You also have, Carly saying that this is the only language these people understand. So it's the idea of fighting fire with fire that obviously, and maybe we've not seen it, the GRC is much worse than what we've seen in terms of just purely hoarding supplies. And even at the start, you see that when, Captain America and Battlestar arrive in Munich, it's the German branch of the GRC that's bringing them in, where he is speaking with the guy who gave Carly refuge in the previous episode. And again, just as an aside, there's a real nice moment because the guy spits in his face, and he goes, I know who you are, but I don't care. This riles up John Walker here. This idea of being, I guess, in part ignored because he doesn't care who he is, but also being spat on and challenged in that way. So I thought that was quite nice. Quite kind of really interesting dynamic there with John Walker, but also the GRC, which we see Kari attacking then in this episode. So, and you have quite a nice little conversation about, what they would like to have been, this idea of a teacher and so on, again, which I thought was, as Lamar says, an element of sympathy that you have with her, or even though she does blow up, a building with, the guards of the GRC in there. So maybe not as, dare I say it, sweet as we thought.
So I'm going to jump in on my view on Kari here. I have problems with this. And this is one of the reasons this is not one of the top episodes for me. And it's bringing it down. Essentially for me, I feel they've literally destroyed the goodwill they built in this episode over the last couple of episodes on this character. One of the things about bad guys in movies, especially superhero movies, is they have to shorthand a lot of it to make you dislike the character, to make them the bad guy, right? Per se. So, and this is the one, like Zemo was one of the best characters in a superhero film, or as a villain, because they built his amazing backstory, right? Same to Killmonger. They built this amazing backstory. Unfortunately, Killmonger, they killed. Zemo, they locked in jail so they can use him again, which is great. With Kari, they built so much goodwill, quote unquote, right? And essentially, they are building over the course of these last 2 episodes, they built this character who you're like, you understand her rationale, you understand her motivation. You're like, oh, this is great. Like, she is essentially a freedom fighter. She is like going to get vaccines. She's using her ill-gotten powers for good, right? And to make sure you remember that she's a bad guy, they get her to commit mass murder. Like, she is literally they set off a bomb in place. Yes, the security guards, collateral damage, but there's probably other people in there. Like, there's probably some other form of admin staff or cleaners because there was a lot of people, like, roped up in that room when you saw the guard.
All guards, in that scene, but in Kari's mind, again, this is, you kept 6 months worth of supplies, of medicines in this place when you could have just gone down, given some medicine to the person I really cared about, and she wouldn't have died.
I know.
We're fighting for our lives here. Is the attitude? I'm certainly not on her side anymore.
Yeah.
But this is 100% the phrase, one person's freedom fighter is another person's terrorist. That's exactly what she is.
Absolutely.
If we hadn't seen this scene, we wouldn't have known that.
Mm-hmm.
But this may be the first flip that we have on Kari. Certainly, we mentioned earlier on that the person who's with her, the other member of the Flag Smashers, is really surprised that she's gone this far.
Yeah, exactly.
And that kind of takes me to my other question, I suppose, about the super soldier serum. I do wonder if they're going to go down the path of, I think it was Nuke, the character that was in Jessica Jones, where him being superpowered turned him crazy, turned him into the villain effectively, because the power was corrupting him in some sense. So I wonder if that's what's happening with Kari here, that she's one of the first that took the super soldier serum, but it wasn't as pure as the one that was used on Steve Rogers, because a different scientist made it, and potentially it's having an impact here and pushing her to more extreme measures than somebody else would be pushed.
Yeah,
we did know that the serum, the previous super soldier experiment for the 5 Soviets that was in Civil War caused them to go crazy.
That's right,
exactly.
Yeah.
And the Red Skull as well.
And the Red Skull, there is a history there that this serum does mess with your mind.
It can,
one of the only ones. So, yes, I agree with that. It's just, for me, I wanted there to be more. Like, we're halfway in the season. Like, it gave me at least another 2 episodes to feel conflicted about this villain. Maybe. Like, I wanted that kind of, like, oh, she's doing the right thing and she's doing it the wrong way, but like, I get it, she's superpowering the guys, and there has to be this to and fro. I wanted that emotional build. Essentially, at this, they continue to build it. They made you feel for her losing her mama, or like, maybe not actually her mama, but the character mama.
Yeah.
And continue and build, and like, she's helping the people, and she just wants to stop the tuberculosis, which has broken out in all these refugee camps. You see her playing kickball with the kid. You see, like, they build it, and then rather than kind of continue to build and show you that to and fro, they just straight away just know she's a killer. And that was my only slight kind of bit. And I was like, oh, you could have continued. And now, I have faith, there's probably a reason. It felt shorthand.
I think for us particularly, especially as Irish people having lived through decades of terrorism in Ireland and the UK, there's certainly an opinion I have the opinion that a terrorist is a terrorist. It's as simple as that.
Yes.
Once you cross the line and once you murder people, you're a murderer. That's kind of an attitude I've certainly been brought up with. I know, Chris, you're probably quite similar. I know, John, being in the UK, you also would have had that kind of experience as well. So Carly's crossed the line now. She's done, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. There is a point beforehand, like with everybody, there's a point beforehand you go, I completely agree with all your motivations, but once you plant a bomb and kill people, without any kind of warning or without any kind of threat or anything like that, and without any kind of support from the people around you or anything that's going on, once you commit a terrorist act, you're a terrorist. Simple as that. So I kind of like, though, that story. I think that's important to show in the Marvel Universe, to have, I agree with their attitudes, and then the methods that they use are over the edge. So there are other members of the Flag Smashers. I think Carly's done as someone to root for. I think there's other members of the Flag Smashers that wouldn't agree with that opinion, and they will separate themselves from her.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with what you said. It absolutely pulls the sympathy element. You know, there's an element of building a sympathetic character here. But I mean, the notion of the one man's freedom fighters, another man's terrorist, absolutely, it is what's going on here. And I think, okay, talking about specific incidents, but, you know, things like French resistance in World War II, Nazis called them terrorists, or the Polish in Poland fighting back against the Germans, a superior force in terms of equipment and personnel. So they had to do these, types of things in order to combat them, but they were called terrorists. And so, like, that absolutely is what is going on here. And I think, you know, the way I guess it's shorthand, for the series, given there's only 3 episodes left. But I mean, this is the only language these people understand, and also having that real contrasting, advert for the Global Repatriation Council, coupled with then the force of the GRC in Germany, with the backing of Captain America and Battlestar. I guess, you know, they're trying to take down their infrastructure, and this is what she's doing. You know, you don't see anyone killed, I get it, in the GRC one, but it's the idea of a group having to deal with effectively every country's army and police.
Yeah.
I get it. The sympathy is pulled because she's just blown up a building with people tied up in it. And that's a terrorist act.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's building into that French resistance kind of idea. And you do get in that conversation between Kari and her second in command, you do get a sense that what happened to them during the blip, there was some injustice there in that they didn't blip out, but that they were still put on the streets after the blip.
So when everybody returned, all of their property was given back to them, and anybody that had lived through the blip is kicked out of their homes, effectively, is what it seemed like. Or this group, at least, is what happened to them.
And so I you know, there is that, anger and that injustice that has festered within this group. And I think it's possibly just this escalation. So absolutely, the sympathy was right in the first 2 episodes, but you see her second in command absolutely horrified that she has just done that. And so this is her escalating and making a change to go about it
The wrong way.
in the wrong way.
Yes. Second in command is called Dovich. I had to look that up because we were talking about him a lot there.
But ultimately, if they were to win, they would be able to write the history about it. And that's the other kind of interesting element.
History is always written by the winners.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think it is important that she did this alone and didn't tell anybody else that she was going to do it. She drove there in her car, planted the car bomb and blew it up, and nobody else in the group seems to have known about this. So it is talking about her being an extremist in amongst the group.
That's it. There's a lot of intricacies and subtleties about how she got to that point, which possibly just it's not able, even in a TV setting, at least 6 episodes long, they've just not necessarily made us, stamped it up front. But I think it's there for sure. And they probably won't be going down the route of the French resistance or whatever, because that's not what they're focusing on. But I think it builds into that whole kind of narrative, I guess.
Exactly. Interesting though, as a moment for this episode. Let's close it out with bullet point number 5, because we kind of have to talk about this ending, really. As Zemo and Sam and Bucky travel over to Riga to meet with somebody. Don't know who they're meeting with, but Zemo does have a connection in Riga that potentially could get them closer to Kari and the Flag Smashers, effectively. Sam and him go one way, and then we see the Winter Soldier pop back up again in Bucky as he notices the Dora Milaje are following them. Really cool little moment here, considering he spent so much time with them in their community, resting up after losing his arm and losing everything effectively. He does know the Wakandans really well, so I like that he has that moment of just seeing the little flashing ball and knowing exactly who it is that's following them and able to track them down. I thought that was a real good use of the character. Yeah,
it's the vibranium beads. So essentially, he's used to seeing these beads all over. So it's a straight away flags it and he goes, oh, okay, there's someone. Oh, there's a flash. All right, go over there. It was cool. He is the White Wolf, as they call him. He was potentially for a time part of their Secret Service. He was helping them out. Well, he was being called White Wolf, who in the comic books is a Secret Service character. So anyway, I thought this was cool. The fact that they bring Ao of the Dora Milaje, who was one of the team in Civil War, and obviously, of course, Black Panther, but she's the one who says to in Civil War to Black Widow, move or you will be moved.
Exactly. Yes. She's one of the kind of featured members of the Dora Milaje. So we've seen her a couple of times, and she has had lines, and she is important enough that bringing her in here really gives that strong connection to Bucky and to Black Panther, effectively. Yeah. So very interesting to see.
Yeah. No, this was great. Yeah, this was great. I think just making that connection back to Wakanda, and certainly with the White Wolf element with Bucky, I really enjoyed this reveal at the end. It makes sense. And, to see what the relationships are here, what Bucky will do, and obviously with Wakanda, putting, their Dora Milaje agent effectively in Latvia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really good. I wonder if Latvia could have been called Latveria ultimately as well.
We will see.
It's renamed in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, exactly.
But gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our bullet points. Any notes for this episode?
I think we've talked about this episode a lot. I think we've actually covered off pretty much all my notes as we went through it.
John, anything from yourself?
No, nothing from my side.
Okay, 2 quick ones from me. First up, Nagel is from the comic books. Mm-hmm. He was in the Captain America Red, White and Black Truth. I should say Captain America Truth, Red, White and Black, the comic book. So he is Wilfred Nagel. He's the character in this who replaces Abram Erskine as the head scientist of Project Rebirth following his death. In the comic books, he is the scientist who created Isaiah Bradley, being the testing on the 300 African Americans in that comic book. So he's directly tied to all of it in the comic books.
Yeah.
The second and final note from me is the names in Steve's, or I should say Bucky's notebook now. So we do have Nakajima, Y Nakajima, which is Bucky's friend Yuri, whose son he killed.
Yep.
We have A. Claremont Windsor, Chris Claremont, X-Men icon, Madripoor, Barry Windsor, Wolverine icon, one of the character creators of Patch, as we've already talked about from the Princess Bar. S. Whitaker, we think this is the kind of Steve Whitaker from the Marvel creator. He did a lot of X-Men stuff as well, also Captain America stuff. L. Hudson. Hudson is James Hudson's, is Wolverine's name. Jimmy Hudson. It's a bit of a stretch there. And Atwood, we already saw from the season premiere.
Yes, we did. Yes, we saw Senator Atwood back there. I feel like we're probably going to see one more of the people that are on the page, so they may not be all connected to the comic book. So maybe that one that you were saying, the one that you're most unsure of, the L. Hudson, maybe that's a character that Bucky will deal with in the final episode when he goes to make his next reparations. So maybe you're right that may not be a comic book character, but really good catches at the other ones. That's excellent, Chris. Good stuff.
Whitaker is the one. It says Whitaker and Hudson's the ones I'm like, the other, Windsor and Claremont, they built Madripoor.
Has
to be them.
Yeah.
And with the other two, we're fine. Anyway, that is it from me. So, gentlemen, as we come to the end of this episode, we must do our defends. First up, Derek, do you defend Falcon Winter Soldier episode 4?
I absolutely defend this episode. I think it's, as I say right at the start, this is my favourite episode so far this season because it's so like what I wanted from this series. It's exactly what I wanted to see. You know, it brings in Sharon Carter, one of my favourite comic book characters, in a much better way than we've seen her in the past. Zemo slots in so well with Sam and Bucky's banter in the episode here, and I like the idea of them all working together. Lots of intrigue, lots of great action, really, really good. The only drawback for me, the reason why it's not a perfect 5 out of 5 or a perfect scoring episode, is just how clunky some of the elements from previous movies were pushed into the scenes in here. There's a way of doing it, and they've had to do it with the Marvel TV shows so far. If you haven't seen all 28 movies, they do have to lay down some of the elements of characters. I just felt it was a little bit clunky in how they put in some former dialogue and former scenes that we've already seen before, putting them into the TV show. It just felt a bit weird. But other than that, overall, my favourite episode so far.
Fantastic. John, do you defend this episode of Falcon Winter Soldier?
I really do defend this episode. I loved it. I would give it 4.5 snaky cocktails out of 5. I just loved. It felt like we were getting into the meat and 2 veg of Falcon and the Winter Soldier here. The meat were, if you will. And I think, I just love Zemo coming into, the couple of Bucky and Sam Wilson. I loved all that interaction, and I loved, the portrayal of Sharon Carter as well here, and of the city of Madripoor. To me, this almost felt like Gotham. Most of the Marvel universe is set in New York, and I like that this creation from the comics was given all its sort of villainous, glory. So, it also, it sets up intrigue with Sharon Carter, who was the lady that she was speaking to? What did that conversation mean? You have the Dora Milaje, coming to Riga to claim Zemo. Again, just that nice touch in from, Endgame and, Black Panther, all really nicely intertwined together, and just carrying forward, some of these questions around Kari and her intentions, but also with the Global Repatriation Council as well. And so, I love the intrigue around the power broker still and who that might be. So for me, this was absolutely, a solid defend, for me. Chris, do you defend episode 4?
I do defend this episode. Unfortunately, it is just, there's one element that takes it down, and that is the decisions they took with Kari. And that is my one complaint with this. Everything else I loved. I loved the potential of what Sharon Carter can be or is currently. I loved the Zemo. I loved Winter Soldier, going back to Winter Soldier, every aspect of this was a fantastic episode, and it puts it in my top 2. It just got it got diminished by this piece of shorthand with Kari, and if it pays off later, I will retract that statement. But for now, it was just so close to a near perfect episode. But there we go, gentlemen. There we have our defense. So you know what? It's been a long episode. Let's go to the pub. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's time for a good old pub quiz.
Yes, no snake shots here. But a question for our fellow quizzers and fellow defenders from episode 4, The Power Broker. What are the 3 R's of the Global Repatriation Council's motto in their advert at the start of the episode? So just a reminder, what are the 3 R's of the Global Repatriation Council's motto in their advert at the start of this episode? Mm-hmm. Send in your answer to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Also, the question will be added onto our website at tvpodcastindustries.com. And of course, for everyone involved in the pub quiz, there is the chance to get the 3 Funko Pops of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Which is the Falcon? It is the Winter Soldier. It is Baron Zemo.
Yeah, unfortunately,
they are the Funko Pops.
Unfortunately, the Sharon Carter Funko Pop isn't available yet. I think that's coming later on in the summer. So I have those 3 available. Those are the ones that'll be going out to the one who gives us all the correct answers. If more than one of our wonderful defenders gives us all the answers correct, there will be a draw in our final wrap-up episode for the winner of those goodies. Thanks so much for the pub quiz question, John. Thank you. Let's get on to some feedback for this episode. Lots of feedback in on the 3rd episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier. First up, Jerry says, "Hey guys, good episode. Baron Zemo's rich. So why has he not broken himself out of prison before this? Sharon Carter, stolen art dealer, or is she something more? Wakanda Dora Milaje in this episode. Excellent." He says, "Love the Easter egg that Sam looked like a pimp. The Falcon in the comics was a street hustler in the beginning."
Yes, Snap Wilson, back in the day.
Interesting.
He had a split personality, and this split personality was called Snap Wilson, and he was a street hustler / pimp.
Interesting.
You can kind of understand even this backstory. I'm glad they got rid of it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Jerry closes out with, "John Walker is getting desperate. Will he make a deal with the power broker?" I think that's entirely possible. If he finds out who the power broker is, he may make a deal to go after Karli, right? He seems like he's going to use every single method open to him to go after Karli and the Flag Smashers. Good stuff, Jerry.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your feedback.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jerry.
Thank you so much, Jerry. We also got an email from Victor who said, "Hail Derek, John, Chris, and fellow defenders. Well, John Walker played himself again. Do you know who I am? Really? Mm-hmm. I just don't like this fellow. A blunt weapon and not very intuitive. I was not surprised Bucky would spring Zemo, a fan of my homeboy Marvin Gaye. Sharon seems to be pretty well set up in Madripoor. I would be hesitant to leave as well. I liked the reactions of the Madripoor nightclub patrons to the arrival of the Winter Soldier. The GRC has good intentions plus poor methods equals a path to hell. I heard somewhere Kari is the daughter of the power broker. Is that true? How will Bucky call off the Wakandans? This episode reminds me of a Cold War spy thriller. Looking forward to your podcast. Excelsior, Victor Von Doom." Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that feedback, Victor. I haven't heard that Kari is the daughter of the power broker. But again, this is a bit like kind of Mephisto. There is so many theories about what is happening in this series. This is kind of like, just let it play out. They'll tell us if that.
At least this is possible, I suppose. But yeah, if anybody said that Karli is the daughter of the power broker, nobody's seen the episodes. Then they're not released to anybody, so somebody's making a guess there. It's entirely possible, yeah. We don't know anything about the character of Karli.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that Nagel says that Karli took the vials of super serum and that the power broker will have some kind of special death for her. So, I mean, I guess maybe is it special because it's the power broker's daughter, and so it has to be a special death because it's in the family? Or is it just simply that, he's taken the most valuable thing that the power broker has and was looking to get, and so therefore that betrayal will lead to a special death?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens there for sure. And I agree, it does feel like a Cold War spy thriller in it, but it feels like it's coming off the end of that big event, which is the blip or World War II, and moving into the Cold War and having all that intricacy coming on. This is the spy thriller, but coming and being driven or fueled by the events of the blip.
Exactly.
Which is really, really good.
And it feeling like a Cold War spy thriller is why I love it. Interesting that Victor mentions GRC having good intentions and poor methods, and that's the path to hell. And we've talked all episode about the Flag Smashers having good intentions, a good idea, and poor methods of doing it. So again, both of the big organizations feeling really grey here in this show. So really good.
Two sides of the same coin.
Thanks again, Victor and Excelsior, indeed. We have some feedback as well through from our Facebook group. First up is Heather Wallace. She says, "Oh, Sam, whether you're going to a film or committing crime in a shady pirate bar, always turn your phone to silent." Yes.
Yep.
Rule 101. I own a vintage green leather jacket very similar to Sharon's, so I guess that's my niche Halloween costume sorted for the year. Excellent stuff. Yes. Maximum impact, minimum outlay. And finally, Heather says, "Can I add that Zemo dancing is exactly what I needed to see this week? These days, though, all those people crowded in together at a rave is scarier than the fight scenes." Absolutely. You could imagine some superhero coming down who can see the spectrum of microbial spread and realizing that it's time to hot tail it out of there. Yes.
Okay, John, you are not allowed to write a superhero TV show.
I could be Microbe Man.
You could be. Thanks so much, Heather. Richard Blade says, "Another solid episode for me, adding in Zemo into the duo or trio now, or is it a quadruple now that Sharon is here? Was nice, and he seemed to fit in well playing off each other. And his mask was spot on. Thought New Cap was going to lose it when talking to Hoskins. He's clearly getting more and more agitated by the situation, which will probably end with him having a big childlike tantrum. With Carly, I was all sympathetic with her cause, stealing food for the kids, but that soon disappeared with the car bomb, and I wondered if that would have further ramifications for her path. Nice to see Ao turn up at the end. Interested if they will deal with the Black Panther's future or at least touch on it, but really hope it's not just a throwaway line like he's busy. I'd prefer a look off screen and then it's complicated just so it's referenced. Finally, I'm suspicious about Sharon. Something just seems off with her and she seems more involved in some way. I'm refusing to Google my thoughts as I don't want to be spoiled." I totally get that, Richard. I'm glad that you're on the same side as us, thinking there's possibly something more about Sharon. I'm convinced there is something more about Sharon that she's not telling us on screen as well. Isn't it really interesting, guys? And I think this is the intention of the show. We haven't really talked about John Walker ourselves. I feel like the show is kind of going, you don't care about this guy, we're just going to push him into the background. Here's all the interesting stuff you do care about. And I think that's important. There's even the discussion with Bucky and Sam on the plane where Sam's saying he wants to destroy the shield and Bucky's going, don't destroy the shield. Somebody's going to be carrying it. That will be the next Captain America. It's not going to be John Walker. I'll go and take it for myself if you're not going to take it, but it's definitely not going to be John Walker. So even in the show, they're going, don't worry about this guy. He's not your new Captain America. Don't worry. It will change by the end of the season or in the future.
I think that's exactly why they're doing it. He is a supporting character. Mm-hmm. He is not the new. It is like, yeah, don't worry about it. He's getting on. It's just happening in the background.
Yeah, and he drives the conversation about that shield and about that pedestal of Captain America and what it means to be, which is so nicely referenced by Zemo in this episode.
It's not like they've recast Steve Rogers with a new actor. That's definitely not what's happening at this show. So you don't have to worry about him. He'll be gone soon.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks so much, Richard.
Yes, thank you, Richard. We also have some feedback from Ronaldo, who said, "I'm sure many listeners will cover the gamut of this. Another fine episode for me. The highlight was Madripoor, baby. I love how they brought this iconic city to life, and I can imagine the likes of Wolverine, aka Patch, there. A nice touch having Sharon Carter off the grid and living there, by the way. Her fight scenes were amazing. Emily Van Camp has put in a lot of work to pull off those scenes, alongside there being seamless transitions between her stunt double. Zemo was also fun to watch, especially when he donned the iconic purple mask. Now we get to need him with a sword in his hand. Looking forward to eventually seeing the Power Broker, but hope we get to see more of Madripoor in any of the further MCU properties in the years to come.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Ronaldo. And yeah, actually I'm thinking that would be cool if we get one scene where Zemo has to take a sword off a wall or something as a part of a fight. Yeah. I'm sure it will happen while he's wearing the mask. Just that one scene, and you get a 30, not even 30, you get a 2-second still of just him in the mask, the trench coat, and a sword.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally with you on Madripoor. Loved seeing that city, Ronaldo. And yeah, on the fight scenes in the container yard on the docks, there's two there that are really stuck in my mind, where she's thrown against the side of the container and the guy follows up with a knee, but she moves out the way. I thought that was really well done. And the one where she shoots the guy as he comes around the corner, it's like that kind of instant cat reaction. And I think the first one,
I felt like Bond. She was waiting for him to come.
It was really nice and fluid, as you say, Ronaldo. Yeah. And the initial one where she's got her metal stick, where she takes out the first three, I think that was throwing down, dare I say it, the baton of metal there.
Yeah,
I see what you did there.
I know.
All the compliments for the comic accurate version of the of Baron Zemo's outfit, but nobody's mentioned Sharon Carter being in the standard undercover MCU outfit. She's wearing pretty much the hoodie that everybody that needs to go undercover has worn, from Steve Rogers to Hawkeye when he needs to go undercover. Everybody wears those hoodies. So yes, we got Sharon Carter in her MCU hoodie.
She just didn't get the hat. If she had to put on a baseball hat and some glasses, that would have been it.
Exactly.
And we could have just said she's undercover.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Ronaldo, for your feedback there. We also have Brandy Anderson's feedback. This last week, I have had a few people comment that they don't understand why so many reviewers and viewers are bringing up race in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. There was even a guy who said he had seen nothing about race at all in the first 2 episodes.
Is he watching the same show?
Absolutely. But these conversations got me thinking about what this show does that isn't really seen in television or movies. It talks about subtle racism, microaggressions, and implicit bias, the type of racism that is sometimes so ingrained we don't realize it's there. So often when racism is depicted on the screen, it's the extremes: slavery, racial slurs, attacks. It is very black and white, no pun intended. But Falcon and the Winter Soldier has a character who represent people that, if asked, would not see themselves as racist or having biases. And those characters are not only white, like the cops or the lone officer, there are black characters who show their biases too, like the kid Sam spoke with in Baltimore, or maybe more so his off-screen father. And even Sam, when he comments on his suit, Zemo is not wrong when he points out Sam's comment implies a well-dressed black man looks like a pimp. Because if Bucky had been the one wearing it, I doubt Sam's comment would be to compare him to a pimp, even if he didn't like the suit and wanted to make fun of Bucky in it. And let's not forget, those biases might be a huge part of why Sam gave up the shield in the first place. Sam's comment about the shield touches on another racial issue. Between finding out about Isaiah and meeting up with Sharon, she's up to something Carter again. Sam is starting to feel the shield is tainted and wonders if he should have destroyed it. For Sam, it is starting to be a symbol of others' suffering, but for Bucky, that shield is a symbol of hope and honor. This is similar to what is happening with the Confederate flag and monuments. For many, they are seen as symbols of racism and hate, while others see it as heritage and pride. I love the show as not only addressing this issue, but taking this approach.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Also, not sure what's going on with Sharon, but she is definitely hiding something. Not sure if the show will go in the direction that she could have gone home if she wanted to, but decided not to because of her secret, or if they will go that she is telling the truth about not being pardoned since she is not a superhero. And between that and being all but abandoned by those she put her neck on the line for, either way, there's something up. Don't know if she's Haywood or Agatha pretending to be Agnes. She might even be Mephisto, but I don't think she's a townspeople. Yeah, that would be awesome if she suddenly became Agnes.
Or Mephisto.
Well, it was Agatha all along. Not Sharon Carter. That could be the coda. Finally, Brandy says, I was really kind of on the side of the Flag Smashers up until the car bomb. But I do like that they show Carly's partner was shocked and displeased about it.
Exactly.
And you can somewhat see what caused her to escalate. Losing her mother or mentor, Mama Donia, and then to see 6 weeks of medication just sitting there not being used while others die. It very much felt like lashing out in pain and grief. Guess that makes her the Wanda in this episode.
Yeah. 6 months of medication as well. Medication and food sitting there. Yeah, so massive.
Zemo was a good addition to the gang. I like he just slips in with the banter without taking anything for the buddy cop bromance between Sam and Bucky. And last but not least, John Walker's facade is slipping quick. Is it the pressure of all the expectations placed on him? Or is he showing his true self? Most likely, it's that he has imposter syndrome. John Walker, do you know who I am? MCU fans, a poor substitute. Brandy. Thanks so much, Brandy, for all of that. I mean, the Flag Smasher stuff and Carly deciding to go on the blow up route, I think, has definitely undermined her sympathetic bent, I guess. But I think, again, we have the interesting thing from the German guy who gave her refuge that, he's not going to give her up. She and Battlestar talks about this loyalty that, there is a cause there that people are believing in. And I guess it's linking to, both John Walker and the Flag Smashers here about the means will justify the end, ultimately, in their mind. But again, I think it's the start of that change in the means, given the shock from her number 2, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Once again, really complex villain here that we've got in the show, and really complex ideals. This concept that we are on the side of the Flag Smashers because we understand your home's taken away from you, people have been put into camps, totally understand that idea, and then suddenly they throw in the car bomb to make it even more complex and even more likely we're not going to be, at least on the side of Carly. But just love your points, Brandy, about this episode. Again, I can't imagine that anybody thinks that this show doesn't talk about racism. It is so centrally layered into what they're talking about on the show, and the character of Sam and everybody on the show, and how it really plays out in the world in all of the conversations. So I think you're right. You've pulled out some really good examples of where they talk about real world racism, and I think that's a really good catch.
Yes, thank you so much, Brandy. I'm with you on pretty much all of this, and same John and Derek. I think the interesting key point is this is not on a HBO Watchmen level discussion or Lovecraft Country discussion of race, but is so interesting to see an MCU property, like, where this is superheroes battling like super soldiers, but they're still able to bring in these real world element and discussion to the point where it does have people kind of going, oh, I don't see race, and you're like, no, it's pretty blatant. Yeah. Come on, we need to examine this. But anyway, I'm very interested to see where they continue, because there is going to be that discussion where Sam and Bucky have the shield, and it is going to be what is next.
Well, absolutely. And I am really intrigued to see Sam meeting up with Dora Milaje, potentially in the next episode. That it's one of the things that we kind of missed in the Marvel universe. We had Black Panther. We had an entire community of Afrofuturists is the kind of the type that we've got this entire country effectively set up that are more advanced than every other country in the world. and we didn't have Sam in there. You know, I'd love to see what Sam thinks of Wakanda. I'd love to have that moment where he understands how this whole society is built. So hopefully we'll get that in the show, at least have that interaction between them. Really cool. Thanks so much, Randy, for your thoughts once again. We have one final piece of feedback from Steve Brand.
Hello, TV Podcast Industries. This is Steve, and this is for episode 3 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Power Broker. Another really good episode, quality. I can't wait to watch it again, and dig even deeper into it. Just a couple quick thoughts here. Let's see, the Flag Smashers. Wow. That was quite a turn. I mean, I know they're trying to be benefactors, but man, blowing up that building with those guys in there and Carly saying this is the only thing those people understand. Wow. Sharon Carter, that was great. And who was the sniper in Madripoor? Are we supposed to assume that was Sharon and she got down? I don't think so. It didn't seem that way. So I'm not sure if they're going to revisit that or if we're going to know who their guardian angel was. Unless it was the woman at the end. Oh, from Wakanda. Could have been. Yeah. Okay, that would make sense then. Why Bucky started seeing the... Okay. Maybe I just answered my own question. So, okay. This is a quick one, but can't wait to hear you guys talk about it later.
Thank you so much, Steve, for that voicemail. We heard your thought process throughout that voicemail. I think it's not supposed to be Sharon who the sniper is. I think it's going to be the woman that she met. Was the sniper, the woman who in the dockyards. Yeah. Is going. I think that's her. Whoever else she works with, I think that's what we're going to find out.
Maybe. Yeah, there's also the possibility that somebody was trying to silence Selby because she was giving too much information out. So maybe it is going to be revisited in the future. Yeah, it's one of those ones where because you don't see the shooter, we don't know who it is. So, but yeah, potentially one of the Dora Milaje. Though I don't think they use guns very often. I think they think of guns as being a bit primitive in comparison to how awesome the weapons are that Shuri creates for them. So,
well, if you'd seen one of the Dora Milaje's metal vibranium spears come flying through the window, then we'd definitely know.
We'd know who it was.
And we kind of have a improvised one from the Winter Soldier as well in the dockyard battle.
He is a massive
he really does.
Someone's body.
But I had the same thing, Steve, on the sniper because it felt like Sharon had just sling ringed down onto onto the road there after that shot. So for sure, it's the guardian angel. But I guess I'm with you guys that it's possibly, if anything, to do with the lady from the dockyards, as you say. So yeah, good stuff. Thanks so much for the voicemail there, Steve.
Absolutely great to hear from you, Steve. If you want to send us any thoughts about any of our shows that we're covering Invincible, we're covering Falcon the Winter Soldier and Pennyworth each week at the moment. You can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. You can join us over in our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries, or you can follow us on Twitter over at tvpodindustries as well. Always great to hear from you.
Yes, thank you so much. Please don't forget to head on over to patreon.com/tvpodcastindustries, where just for a dollar bill, you can support us for just that amount and help keep the lights on, the podcast engine running, and our editor in caffeine. Or you can head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can subscribe to us on any good or evil, grounded or flying podcast catcher. And you can also leave us an old review, because we'd love an good old 5-star review, because who doesn't love a star-spangled banner podcast review that's 5 stars? I don't know where I was going with that, but it nearly worked. Yes, thank you so much. We'll be back next week with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 4, which airs next Friday.
So a big thank you to all our fellow defenders, and we'd like to just give a shout out to our 4 new patrons as well. A big thank you for your support and for keeping this producer here in coffee. Thanks to Mike Scannell, Mark Elliott Fogelsong, Victor Sellers and Siren School for your support.
Absolutely.
It really is appreciated, and thanks so much for helping us out. And thanks to everyone for their support by subscribing to the podcast and sending in the feedback. It is great having the community of fellow defenders, fellow industrialists, and you name it, fellow whatever it is that we're covering. It's great to have you on board.
Chris came up with a new one for Invincible yesterday, fellow Guardians for Invincible. I like that.
Nice. That's a really, really good one.
I like that. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you all so much for your support. Really, really good of you to keep supporting us as we go through all of the shows that we're going through. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, thanks so much, fellow defenders, for joining us. It's great getting your input. It's great having the chat and discussion on all things Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Remember, though, keep watching, keep listening, and keep defending.
Oh, and everybody have a very happy Easter this weekend. Yes.
Yep. Happy Easter. Go have those bunnies.
Yeah, happy Easter, everyone. Chock yourselves out.
Bye.
Bye.
I hear a lot of people saying the blues, but I'm gonna tell you what the blues is.